Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make this really cool face rig right here using Maya. We're going to use blend shapes to set this up, and I'm going to show you guys how to do proper retopology to make this work, and we'll finish by showing you guys how to set up a control rig for it. Now if you're not a fan of long intros, go ahead and skip to this time code right here in front of my face and get straight to that tutorial. Alright, real quick, I have a small disclaimer. I work at another YouTube channel called Production Crate. Now this tutorial might look familiar if you're already a fan of Production Crate, and if you are, that's cool. Welcome, stick around, subscribe if you want to, but I just want to say right off the bat that you shouldn't expect this channel here to become like Production Crate 2.0 where I dig deeper into every tutorial. That's not what this channel's for. This is my personal channel, so it's not endorsed by Production Crate. Anything I say here is my opinion, not theirs, that sort of thing. And I'm just doing this because a couple friends asked me how to do this with a little bit more detail. If that is what you're looking for and you want me to dig deeper into Production Crate tutorials, go over there and subscribe and ask your questions over there, leave comments, go on our Discord, ask your questions, and we'll do that for you. That said, I am going to use this channel a lot more now. So what do I plan on actually doing here? Well, I'm making my own short film, so I'm going to use this as like a development vlog for that to kind of show off my progress, keep me on track. And there will be tutorials. I'll do tutorials based on what I'm learning as I go. Also, I was a teacher for a good few years before I quit last year during the pandemic. So I have a ton of tutorial information stuck in my brain that I need to get out. So that's what I'll be using this channel for. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get to the video now. So what I'm gonna do here is take this pack of like free blend shapes that I found online and show you how to apply it to any custom character with any likeness that you want. Could be even a cartoon character as long as it has all the same facial features of a human face. So let me just show you that really quick. If you go to the link in the description, it'll take you to this GitHub page. This is where you can find all the info about the pack that you're about to download. Again, it's totally free. If you go to this green code button right here, you can click download and it'll download a huge zip folder. Now, if you open up that zip folder, there's going to be somewhere in there's going to be a whole bunch of OBJs. And one of them is called generic neutral mesh. That's the base mesh for the character. And then there's a whole bunch of other OBJs, which is individual facial expressions and even some adjustments for like the bone structure of the character. So you can change the character's likeness if you want. So I've already imported all that stuff into here. I'll show you kind of what you get. This is actually a really cool base mesh. It's got the face, we have eyes, we have teeth, and then if you look closer at the eyes, there's extra geometry here. There's some eyelash geometry, and there's even like a water layer, like a tear layer if you look at this geometry here. So really detailed stuff, very cool. Here in this group I have all of the other geometry, which I'll unhide so you can see it. And this is just like 150 faces, just kind of piled up on top of the default one. And if I start pulling them apart, you can see that they all have different facial expressions. So that's what blend shapes are. It's just the same model over and over with a few minor changes. In this case, one for every conceivable movement of the face. So let me show you how to set this up really quick. If you get this pack, I'm actually gonna hide my group full of blend shapes and just leave the base mesh visible. If I select all of the blend shapes here and then select the base mesh last, I can go up to deform blend shape, create blend shape. It'll look like nothing happened, that's cool. But if you go to window, animation editor, shape editor, you'll see a list of all the facial expressions. And you can sort of like turn these on, slowly animate them on. This one's pretty cool, mouth funnel. And what's really cool is you can actually combine multiple expressions together to make something new. So if I go to jaw open, wherever that is, got that, looking good. And I can also do mouth funnel, and it'll combine those two shapes for something new. Now what's also really cool, if I turn on the wireframe, all of those extra little details like the waterline and the eyelashes, they all move too. So if I move the eyes, maybe do like a squint, you can see that the waterline moves and the eyelashes move. For simplicity for this tutorial, I'm actually going to go in and delete everything except for the mesh itself, the head itself, the eyeballs, and the teeth. Just because when I apply my likeness to the model, it's going to change the proportion of where the eyes are on the face, and it's going to be too much work to sort of move the eyelashes and the waterline over on every single blend shape. So I'm just going to work on just the bare minimum here. Okay, so that was a quick tour of all the stuff that's in that download. Let me show you what you need to actually do this technique. So the trick with blend shapes is that if you have two models that have the exact same topology same edge flow and everything, you can blend them together. So that what we have to do is we have to actually make a version of this generic head that's shaped like my head, and I'm going to apply my head as a blend shape. And it'll just be a slider that you can turn on, and it'll look like me. And because you can add blend shapes together, I can just leave that one turned on, and I can mess around with all the facial expressions. So here's what I've got. Here's my sculpt from ZBrush. It's actually based on a scan that we did at work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shrink wrap this onto my head sculpt, because you can see that the topology is not the same. You can do this in most 3D programs. I'm going to use my favorite one, which is called Wrap 3, because it's super fast. So I guess this is going to be kind of a Wrap 3 bonus tutorial too. So let me show you how this is done. This is Wrap 3. It's a node-based editor, so you work completely on this window on the right. If I press tab, I can search for nodes. I want to load in geometry, so I'm just going to start typing in the word load, and there's load geometry right there. I'm going to do that again. Grab another load geometry node. And if I click right here, I can search for the geometry that I want to load up. Here's my sculpt, which is my likeness. And I'm just going to press F2 to name this node as well. So I'll call this mic likeness, just so I don't get them mixed up. I'm going to load the generic neutral mesh here, and I'll press F2 to rename this base mesh, I guess. Now, there's something about this, things have to be connected in the right order, and I always get it wrong. So the first thing I usually do, or the next thing I usually do, is I search for a node called wrapping, because this one will tell you what order things get plugged in at the end. So right here I can see that on the left is floating geometry. That's the model that's going to change. The next one is fixed geometry. Obviously that's my sculpt, that's not going to change. So these are backwards. I need to switch this around. I'll put my likeness over here, base mesh on the left. We're actually not going to use wrapping node yet. We'll get to that later. But let's choose a node called select point pairs. And you can see this has two inputs. I'm going to click and attach both meshes. So now I can switch over to the visual editor. Before I move the camera, I'm going to turn on sync views. So now when I turn one camera, they both move. Now they are actually in the same place in 3D space, but it's just two separate cameras, one for each model. Now you can see my sculpt here as the geometry is way too dense. I can't really see anything. So you can actually click on my likeness sculpt node here and just turn off the wireframe, and then go back to select point pairs. Much better. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to click common points around the face that we want to shrink wrap together. So for example, like I want the tip of the nose here to be the tip of the nose there. Notice there's a little number 0. And let's say this little dip right here, it's going to go right there. You can see now it's 1, 1. So that's a really handy way to make sure that you're getting the points aligned properly. If you ever see that the numbers don't match, it means you clicked in the wrong sequence and you got kind of mixed up somewhere. So you have to unfortunately undo and do it all again. So I'm just going to go around the model and pick some really important areas. So like maybe in here, cool, corner of the eye. Don't worry, I'm not going to do this whole thing in real time. I'll fast forward here in a second, but we just do a couple more. So it's not just really prominent features and landmarks that you need to mark out. It's areas that are important in terms of facial expressions. So one area I'm going to get later, which you'll see, is this fold right here, because when the blend shape smiles, I want to make sure that it's the same part on my face that happens. So I'll just do that now while I'm talking about it. So I'm definitely going to put a little point here in the corner. And then on my model, I can almost see like the hint of a shadow of that fold. So maybe I'll just kind of put a point there and just kind of roughly on the same point on this model here. Do the same thing on this side. So anything that's important for facial animation, that's what we want to do. Okay, let me actually speed up and just kind of get some of this done so you don't have to sit and watch me click a million points. Okay, so I've done a lot of the key features of the face. There's a couple areas I also like to get. Tip of the chin, because so the whole jaw is bony, so it sort of moves as a unit. Depending on the character design, sometimes they don't have really prominent jaws. So I like to get the tip of the chin, and I also like to get the corner of the jaw here, because it's like I said, it's a rigid shape. Even though there's a lot of fat and stuff that squishes, I just like to get it moving and aligned properly. The other thing is any deep recesses like the nostril, sometimes the projection doesn't quite get up in there and you get some errors. You'll probably see that here in a few minutes. So I just like to put a little point in there to make sure that the nostril gets kind of sucked up in there. and doesn't end up floating outside the face. Same thing on the deep part of the eye sockets here. Now, one thing you don't want to do is the mouth cavity. So if I look here at this mesh on the left, if I look underneath, I can see it has a mouth cavity, and that's good. If I zoom in on my sculpt on the right side, there is no mouth cavity because it was sculpted from a sphere in ZBrush basically. So don't do any points on the mouth cavity, it won't work. We'll deal with that in a minute here. Notice that the necklines don't match. There's kind of more on my sculpt than there is on the base mesh. That's fine, it'll work just fine, but I do like to put some sort of an anchor point anatomically. Sometimes I like to put one on like the back little spine bump there. That's kind of up to you. Maybe the base of the skull. One thing I always forget the first time around is the ears. So let me just go ahead and click a few points in here. Okay, I think that's good. If I forget anything, it'll become really obvious. So over here on the right side of the graph, we're going to start plugging some stuff in. So we have this wrapping node from before, and this one's really easy. It's color coded for you, which makes it super easy. So this yellow node here is going to plug into there, and then these two blue ones just get plugged into these meshes, sort of in the same order they're laid out here at the top. Now this red one is for masking. So if there's a certain area that you don't want to be wrapped, you plug it in there. And like I said, I don't want the mouth cavity to change, because if I just press go right now, the mouth cavity here has nowhere to really go. So it'll probably just end up on the surface of the mouth, which is bad. So we got to mask that out so it doesn't do anything. Typically, I also like to mask off the eye sockets because they're generally never the same size inside and they don't usually map right. And then same thing with the nostrils. So let me just do that. I'm going to create a node here called select polygons, and I'll plug in base mesh. So with this window, I can actually select which polygons I don't want to be affected by what I'm about to do. So I'll zoom in on the mouth cavity, and I'll just select a good edge loop like that. And I'm going to click grow a bunch of times. What's happening is it's actually growing the selection like that. So I'm going to click it until it starts to pop out of the mouth. There we go. A little bit too far, so I'm going to press shrink to shrink it back in. And actually, I want to do the eye sockets too, like I said. So let me shrink it back maybe 10 edge loops. Hopefully that's enough. And I'm going to select a loop inside the eye. And I said I wanted to do the nostril too, so let's try that out, see if that works. I'm going to press grow. So the eye, that's about how far out I want to mask. I don't really want to mess with that. I'm going to go a little bit farther out on the nose, so let me just add a couple edge loops here. Okay, so those are the faces that I don't want to be shrink wrapped. So I'll plug this red node here into there. Perfect, okay. So now we're ready to go. I'm just going to press compute, and this other window will pop up, and the wireframe, the base mesh, should shrink wrap and become shaped like my face. If it takes forever, or you start to see your sculpt changing shape to the generic mesh, then you plugged it in backwards, and unfortunately you have to kind of undo everything and redo it. All your selection and everything. But it looks like I got it right this time. You can see that clean mesh is starting to look like me, which is good. Everything should look like me. That's my goal in life. I want a giant statue. By the way, if you ever have the opportunity to get your head scanned, you should do it. It's real humbling. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit, so I'll be back when this is done. Ooh, it's done. Okay, pretty cool. It actually looks pretty clean. The first thing you're going to notice if something is wrong is if, like, maybe I clicked, see, like right here on my eyebrow it says number 31. Maybe I click 31 on the left eyebrow on one model, but on the right eyebrow on the other. So what they're going to do is the mesh is going to kind of like stretch across to the wrong area, and that's very apparent when it happens, and it looks like I didn't do that. Let's look for some more subtle errors now. Here's one. Okay, so notice in here, the inner wall of the nostrils are kind of crossing over. They're kind of overlapping and turning inside out, so I'm gonna have to fix that. There's some weird bumps inside the eye socket, but I can fix that too. And then if you look wherever you click to point, there's a chance that there might be some weird zigzagginess or stretching in the topology. So here you can see some weird waves. And that's just because I didn't quite click in the exact same spot on both models. And so the mesh is kind of like being pulled down. There's some tension just to make sure those dots align. We'll relax that. It's not a problem at all. And the lips look like they're overlapping a bit too, but we can fix all that. So here's a trick I saw on the official 3D Scan Store YouTube channel. Go check out 3D Scan Store on YouTube. But he has this really cool trick for relaxing stuff. I'm going to search for a node called brush, and here there's 3 input nodes. First one is geometry. I'm going to grab the wrapping geometry. This is kind of like the resulting geometry of what we just did. And then the reference geometry is actually my likeness, and the base mesh is my source geometry. So I'm going to use my pen. Over here on the left, there's some cool brushes that we can use to sort of fix the geometry a little bit. The main one you're going to use is called clone, or relax projection is pretty good too. And this helps you just sort of relax the edge flow. So notice this little kink in the geometry, just going to relax that. Now, in some areas, this brush isn't going to cut it. I need something a little more aggressive for this area, so I'm just going to use the relax brush. But be very careful with this because this is not referencing the shapes that I want. It's not referencing the anatomy. It's referencing just the resulting brush, and it's like taking a smooth brush and ZBrush and just kind of ruining everything. So I'm way too aggressive with this. I'm going to lose my likeness. I might destroy my nose so it doesn't look like my nose anymore. So see how it's really changing the shape? You got to be careful with it. Fortunately, if you get kind of in trouble with it, you can fix it. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to relax the lips here to sort of separate them so they're not overlapping. But eventually they're not going to look like my mouth anymore. It's gonna ruin it. But we can switch to the clone brush and sort of bring it back until they just barely touch. So nice low strength so that it's small, slow movement so it doesn't get out of control. And there we go. That brought it back. Okay, I'm going to use this brush in other places to straighten out some edge flow. Looks like there's some weird waves in my eye area. Now be careful in areas where the shape of the model, the 2 different models don't match, like the inside of the eye socket, it doesn't match. So if I'm too aggressive, like if I use the relax projection brush, you're going to get some weird spiky action where the mesh doesn't know which shape to mimic. So I'm going to use the relax brush with a nice low strength, and I can go in and just clean up the weird bumps inside this eye socket. What I recommend doing is taking something like clone and trying to stick just to the area that was not masked off by this polygon selection node. The other thing too is be very careful around the key features of the face, like the eyes and the nose and the mouth, because if you change the shape too much, it's not going to look like your person anymore. It won't look like me in this case. Here's another example. Like my eyebrow's got this weird wave in it. I can fix that. I think everything looks pretty good. It's just a demo. If anything's messed up, it'll just make for a more entertaining video later. So what you want to do is click on your brush node and click apply right here to finalize it. And then you can right click on your brush node and go save geometry. There we go. Let's import that into our scene. I'm going to jump back over into Maya. Okay, so we're back here in Maya. Off camera, I did a little bit of work. All I did was I went in and I deleted the extra geometry like I said I was going to do. So let me just show you what I ended up with. I've got the head model, obviously. I've got the mouth stuff, and then just the eyeballs, but no eyelashes, no waterline, no extra stuff. And you'll see in a minute why I did that, because when I apply my likeness, my eyes are going to get really close together, because that's my face. And I didn't want to deal with moving the eyelashes around for every single blend shape. There's like 158 of them or something, so I didn't want to do that. So once again, I've got my base head here with head, mouth, eye. Now if I open up my blend shapes group here and I unhide one so we can look at it, you can see I actually deleted everything except the head model. The blend shapes don't have teeth or eyes or anything because I'm just going to be changing the face. Okay, and notice that I've also imported my likeness. Now the key thing here, as I mentioned before, is my likeness and all the blend shapes and the generic head base mesh have the exact same edge flow. So if I were to maybe select an edge loop here, the same one will do the same thing on both models. They're both the same. Just to prove it, I'm just selecting a couple of these. Yeah, so you can see it's the same mesh. One's just shaped like me. There's nothing else different topologically. So let's select all of our blend shapes, including the likeness of your character. And then lastly, I'm going to shift select the head and I'm going to go to form, create blend shape. I'm going to go to window, animation editors, shape editor, just like before, just like we did in the beginning. All of the facial expressions are here, except here at the top is my blend shape called Mic Likeness. So if I turn that on, it looks like me. But notice the eyes don't line up in the sockets anymore. So I'm actually gonna move those together so they fit. I'm not gonna spend too much time getting this perfect because it's just a demo. And again, if something goes wrong, it's just good television. So now this works. If I just leave my likeness blend shape on, I can also turn on other blend shapes like, let's see, jaw open. And you can see all the blend shapes work. I can jaw forward, I can squint. One of the fun ones is called mouth funnel, right there. But animating these sliders is not a whole lot of fun, so I'm actually going to give you guys a quick bonus tutorial right now on how to do a quick rig with controllers. Because, for example, if I want to open the mouth, check it out. If I go jaw open, the teeth don't move, and so the animator would have to select that and then move it. I'd rather have one slider that does both. I want the jaw, my lips to open, and I want the teeth to go down too. So let's go ahead and set that up real fast. This isn't really a rigging tutorial. It's really more of a blend shape, so I'm just going to do this really fast here. There's a key thing. Normally what you would do if you're really rigging this guy is you would bind the skin to like the jaw, so you rotate the joint here to open up the mouth, but we already have a blend shape that does that. We don't want the joint to also do that because then you get like double rotation. So I'm going to bind the skin to just these joints here, and then the jaw is going to control the teeth. So let me grab just those three joints and then the skin, and I'll go skin, bind skin, option box. For this video, default settings is fine, except that I'm going to choose bind skin to selected joints. So it's just those three joints. Cool. Let's test it out. And that's terrible, right? I'm going to paint the weights really quick. I'll fast forward through this because it's not really the point of this video. Alright, so that's all I'm really going to worry about. I'm not really even going to animate the head, so I guess it wasn't that important. But what is important is I want to rig the teeth to the jaw joint. So let's go ahead and hide the head really quick. And I'll click on the teeth model, and I'll select the head joint, or the neck joint in this case. And the jaw rotate, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to go skin, bind skin. And if I rotate the jaw joint, you can see it doesn't quite move right. The top moves too. So let me just go ahead and fix those weights. Cool, done. So now when I rotate this jaw joint, the teeth move. So we're all set to set up the controllers now. I want this to be really artist friendly, so I just want little graphical icons that I can move around, and what you expect to happen happens, just with one controller, that sort of thing. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create a NURBS circle, and I'm gonna duplicate it. So I have two circles like that. I'm just gonna squish this one into like a square. All of you rigging artists are cringing because there's way better ways to create good looking rigs and controllers, but again, just a quick thing for the video. Now let's go ahead and freeze transformations on all that stuff. Now I don't want the animator to be able to move this anywhere. I want to sort of stay contained inside the box. So let me show you guys how to do that. If I move this up, I can see that the maximum distance it moves is actually about 4, and it's the same in every direction because it's a square. So let me show you how to actually lock it so it can't move farther. We're going to limit the transformations. So if I go to the attribute editor, I can go to limit information, open up translate, and I'm going to limit the X and the Y. So I'm going to turn on the min and the max. And we decided that the limits were -4 to 4 in both directions. And its default location is 0. So now if I grab this and I just sort of move it around, you can see it won't leave the box. And that has nothing to do with the box. The box doesn't even need to be there. It's just that I set the limit, right? Okay, let's go ahead and once again, maybe delete history, freeze transformations. And I'm going to parent the little one to the box like that, child to parent, press P. And now what I can actually do is move this around anywhere I need it, and I just have this controller that does stuff. So I can actually duplicate this. Let's make like 3 or 4 of them, just so I can try out different things on the face. Cool. Okay, let's make the controller first for the jaw to open and close. So what I want it to happen is when I move this down, I want his jaw to open. And then when I move it side to side, I want his jaw to move side to side. Go to key, set driven key, set, and let's name this controller. I'm gonna call this jaw control. And over here in the set driven key window, I'm gonna say load driver. Oh, you know what? This reminds me, I forgot to lock the attributes that I don't want to be changeable. So I'm gonna select everything except translate X and Y, right click and go lock selected. And I'll go load driver. There we go. So now there's just 2 attributes. Down here, what's the driven object that's gonna be controlled by the driver? It's actually the blend shape in this case. So I'm gonna go up to Window, Animation Editors, Shape Editor. And the way you select the blend shape is you click here and you right click and go select blend shape node. And then I can go load driven. So when I move the translate Y up and down, I want the blend shape called mouth open, or jaw open, to do this, right? So let's do that. Translate Y is going to control jaw open right here. Now, if I look, this is at 0. My jaw open is set to 0. It's they're both in the default pose. So I'm going to click on key to lock in that default pose before I do anything else. It's very important. Then I'll move this down to the minimum, -4, and I'll open jaw all the way like that. Jaw open all the way up. And I'll press set key. Now when I move this back, you can see this controller is controlling this slider as I move it. It's very awesome. Let's set this back to default. Okay. Maybe when I bring it up, his lips sort of press together. That'd be cool. So let's say translate Y is also going to control mouth. I think there's one called mouth press. Mouth press. Yeah, that one's pretty cool. Let's try that. So here's mouth press left and right. And they're both in the default position. My controller's in the default position. So I'll press set key and I'll move this up. And I'll just sort of turn these up a little bit. I don't know if I want to go all the way. Maybe about halfway. And I'll press key. So now when I go down, the jaw opens, and as I bring it up, it kind of looks like he's squeezing his mouth together a little bit. You can be as artistic with this as you want, as creative with this as you want. Okay, let's do the side-to-side motion now. So I'm going to do translate X here on the jaw control, and that's going to control jaw left and right. Once again, everything's in the default position, so let's set key to establish that. And then I'm going to bring this over here to screen right, which is actually character left. So I'm going to do jaw left right here. Press key. And I'll move it this way and do jaw right and press key. So now we have like a fully functioning controller, which if you watch the sliders over here as I move it around, it's kind of automatically animating them based on the position of this thing, which is cool. But if you look at the character, the jawbone doesn't move. So we need to set that up. So I'll set this back to default position. And I'm going to leave the jaw control where it is, but I'm going to add this jaw rotate bone to my driven object list here. And let's do the up and down motion first. That's going to be translate Y. And if you're not sure which axis it's going to be to rotate the jaw open, just test it. So that's rotate Z. There we go. So once again, everything's in default position. Set key first. And then I'll go down to the maximum sort of extreme pose. And then I'll rotate this as far as I think it needs to go, like that. Notice I have a problem here. The teeth are actually clipping with the lips. That's fine, we can fix it later. Don't worry about that right now. Let's go ahead and hit key to set that. And as I bring this up, you can see as I go up into the positive direction, I don't really want the teeth to come together more because they're already touching, so I'll just leave it how it is for that. And now we're going to go translate X, which is side to side, and that's going to control jaw left and right. Or I'm sorry, it's going to control the jaw rotate left and right. So I believe that's going to be rotate Y. Cool. I'm going to set key for that default pose. Let's bring this over, and then on rotate Y, I'm going to bring the teeth over maybe 7 degrees or something like that. Set key, and let's bring this back this way, and I'll set the teeth to -7 degrees the other way. Perfect. Set key. Now we should have a fully functioning finished controller. And you can see it sort of feels like the teeth are grounded inside the face. And really what's happening anatomically is the bones are controlling the soft tissue of the face. Set that back to 0. So I'm going to show you guys one more thing, and that's how to fix blend shapes when they clip. Like I showed you here when I was doing the jaw. See how when I open this up, the teeth kind of are inside the lip. So you can actually edit the blend shapes directly. So I'm gonna go find jaw open, I'm gonna unhide it, and I'm gonna move it here. Now it's really important that you don't freeze transformations as long as it maintains its local transformations here. You can move it, but if you freeze transformations, what's gonna happen is my face is gonna jump over to it, so don't do that. But I can go in and edit this on the vertex level, and if you watch my face over here, it will update in real time. So I'm just gonna sort of push this out, and you can see what's going on there on my face. You can go crazy with it if you want to. Amazing. All right. And now that blend shape does that. I don't know why I would want it to do that, but that's what it does now. Oh man, that's wild. Okay, so thanks for watching. Okay, bye. Cut. How do you end YouTube videos?